Good evening. This is Lotus Chat. Thank you for joining us this week. And I'm so excited to tell you that the ladies are here and we are excited to talk to each other and to you tonight about building connections through critical communication, the gifts of listening. I'm Laura Benson, and my colleagues here tonight are, I'll have them introduce themselves.
I'm Jazzy.
Hi, I'm Zien.
Hi, I'm Jen.
And hi, I'm Matilda.
So tonight we're going to get started individually. We're going to talk about the prompts that we have and kind of share our individual thoughts and stories, and then we'll summarize it at the end. Please, as normal, feel free to make comments in the comments section, and we will be watching them throughout the week, and we would love to converse with you. First thing that we want to talk about, that I want to share, is what does listening mean to me? I remember at an early age how important it was for me to go to my grandmother's house. She was retired and she had time, and she actually listened to me. And I was one of those kids that just talked nonstop. And she listened to everything I had to say as if it was the only thing that anyone said on earth. But I remember feeling important. And so that is my earliest recognition of what it felt to be listened to. Listening is an art. So many times we're multitasking in our fast-paced society. In the work that I do, people are trying to do multiple things. And so listening really isn't a part of the communication. It's give me the facts, tell me what I need to know so that I can go and do 3 or 4 more things. The problem is we lose the art of connecting with people. So for me, listening is very important because it shows I care. I learn something. It's valuable to me, but I can connect with somebody and really get to know them and understand them. So listening is an art that I am continually working on to show people I care. When was the time when you paused, and what were the results? Well, I was actually forced to pause, but it never left me. And I was a single mom and I was multitasking. And my 7-year-old son came up to me. He put his hands on my face and he says, "Mom, look at me, I'm talking." And it was like an instant light went on inside of me that he needed to see me. He needed to know I was listening, and it broke my heart. And so from that day forward, I realized how important listening was rather than just communicating. And so from that time on, I now have a coaching business, and it has been such a powerful tool for me just to listen. I have a couple of clients that my first meeting with them, they just talked the whole time, talk. And at the end, they started to cry and they thanked me because they said, nobody has listened to me in so long. And so it's something that is important to all of us to hear and to be heard. How do you feel when someone is not listening to you? That is usually where my heart stops and my head takes over. When somebody is talking nonstop and they're not listening, then my mind starts racing because I feel I have to somehow come up with something to say in the next breath. So I'm waiting for them to take a breath, and then I'm thinking about what I'm going to say, and that's not communication. That's the art of strategy. And so with that being said, I feel like I'm not being heard. I feel like I'm not being valued, and I feel like I'm missing something when I am not being listened to. And that's why it is so important for me to listen. Jazzy, why don't you share with us?
Yeah, thank you, Miss Laura. I definitely feel that one. Okay, so what listening means to me is being receptive. It also means creating a space where there's open body position so that we are connecting and that we are in a space to give and receive information or feelings, or to create that connection by establishing rapport with one another. And it also means it's the art of giving and receiving, essentially. So an example of when I actively listen is when I do take the moment to pause when I'm interacting with my daughter. And when she's in her world of curiosity, so she's 2 years old, I always make sure that before reacting or creating a dynamic, I see where her curiosity is taking her. So it allows me to really sit back and observe, and really figure out how I'm going to navigate with what I'm responding to in her environment. So it gives her an opportunity to be able to grow, to make those decisions, and it's interesting to be able to let her to just see where like her intuition is going to take her in that moment. So for me, pausing really does give me that moment for introspect and an opportunity for her to be herself. And how do I feel when someone is not listening? At times that could be I could feel like I'm disrespected or disregarded or unheard. Like it doesn't feel like a connection is there. So that could feel very discouraging, and essentially sometimes I might want to check out, or like, this just isn't the vibration. Maybe this isn't the topic, or maybe this isn't the person, but it gets very uncomfortable. So what about you, Zian?
Thank you, Jazzy. Thank you for sharing that. For me, what listening means to me is the feeling of being acknowledged, really the feeling of being heard, like people are hearing me and acknowledging me. And that listening sometimes comes from just nodding the head and gazing at my eyes, or simply just putting down the phones. That's it. And listening for me is also meaning focusing out. So when I'm listening, I'm actually focusing on the other person. When was the time when I did pause? And I think there was many times at work. I have this funny habit, and I'm talking as though no one's watching, just to you girls. I have this funny habit of typing away when somebody's listening. It's just the way I process information. And then when I'm at work, sometimes when my colleagues are talking to me, I tend to type, and I do that not out of disrespect. I do that because I want to remember what they say and then kind of process it a little bit more. But over time, the feedback that I got is that I'm not listening because I'm actually looking at a computer. I'm not really looking. So one of the habits that I really got, Laura, just in case you're wondering, is because I start drinking tea. So when I'm holding my hot tea, I have nothing else to do but to actually listen. I can't do anything. So that's one of the things I pick up at work. And how do I feel when someone's not listening? Definitely, I feel disregarded, disrespected. And I think with the intensity of mobile phones and social media nowadays, I think when people are not listening, but just busy taking photos and posting when you're trying to have a meal, it actually hurts, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Deep down inside, that's what I feel. I feel really hurt. Yeah. But what do you think, Jen?
Well, thank you, Zian, for sharing all that. And thank you, Laura, Jazzy. I mean, this is such an important topic, I think, especially right now in this day and age when we've noticed how disconnected we can become with all the distractions around us all the time, how busy we are at any given time. What listening means to me, I'm reminded of a quote that I heard a while back, and I cannot recall for the life of me who said it, but it definitely stuck with me. And the quote is basically, the quieter you become, the more you can hear. Mm. And that has stuck with me in a lot of instances in my life, and definitely has reminded me how important it is to just listen. And oftentimes we lose the definition of what listening means and what hearing is. And based on what I've read, I mean, they're both can easily be synonymous, but to hear with thoughtful intention is what the goal should ultimately be. And in my case, what listening means to me is just that. And I was able to, and the second, the question here is, when was a time when I did pause and what was the results? I realized how important it was to listen with thoughtful intention when I had an experience with a dear friend of mine who I've known for a very long time, who just came to me one day and said, Jen, I really need to talk to you. I need to talk to you right now. I don't want you to, say anything. I don't want any judgment. I just need you to be here with me and just listen to what I'm about to tell you. After that discussion, I was just in awe of my friend's vulnerability, of how open they were to me about what they were going through, things that I did not know that's, what they were feeling, or just realizing that, wow, thank you for sharing. Like in my head, that's what I said, but I didn't say a thing after my friend was done. And all I did was I gave them the biggest hug. And I just said, I am here for you. That is all I said. And the next day, my friend ended up calling me and telling me how important that moment was for them, because they said, I really needed somebody to just listen. And our relationship has gone to another level where I feel like, my friend can come to me for anything and everything. I mean, not that she didn't before, but I feel like that is entirely possible now, where we could just sit and I could do the same with her and just be like, can I have this space right now? Just hear me out. When I feel not listened to by somebody, it does hurt. And it does feel like I don't matter in a way. And I've come across that in my relationships in the past, where, I felt a significant other may not have really heard what I was saying, may not have really listened to what I was saying. It was more so like, I didn't really feel like I was a part of the relationship. So it's very important for us to remember to be there for someone and to listen with and to hear with thoughtful intention. And that's my experience. What about you, Matilda?
Absolutely incredible, ladies. Absolutely incredible. Well, what listening means to me is to be totally outward focused, that my intention is set upon taking in, receiving what the speaker has to say. We have this thing at my home where my husband says we work on a 2-to-1 ratio. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. That means you should listen twice as much as you speak. So whenever you consider that, even nature tells us to pay attention. It can become a challenge, though, because all of you and I too have had experiences where we were not listened to. But I'm excited about Laura's experience on her grandma's, and how that made you those were the first inklings of you're feeling important and you're feeling significant. And that's amazing. And then Jazzy, with you and your daughter, and how you're able to allow her just to be, and then you watch. That's such an important way to listen to someone. And Zian, you're very meticulous with all things, and for you to identify, hey, you didn't want to offend anybody, so now you treasure that teacup so that you can pay attention. And that's really key. And then with you, Jen, you mentioned how you gave your friend the gift of silence, which was what she needed at that time. You paused within and you gave her that gift. And really, you all have all described what the art of listening is all about. I think for me, a time when I did pause was I get to practice it daily. My daughter, who's 22, comes over and speaks with me daily. And she demands that I look at her. And she will take my face and turn it toward her. Or she'll put her arm around my shoulder to make sure that I am totally focused. And I do know what it feels like not to be heard. And I'm excited about tonight because here we are. We're five women who live in totally different places, have totally different vocations, totally different things going on. But we're here for other women to empower them so that they can stand in their authentic self and they too can be heard. They can be heard. And the best way to do that is, like Jazzy said, it's all about giving and receiving. When you give that gift of listening, it'll come back to you and you'll be heard. So I'm going to turn it back over to who is next. Laura, Zian, where do we go from here?
I want to add something. So when you shared, like just listening to what you shared about all of us, like the biggest thing that I recognize is being present, how important it is to be present when you're listening. Like that's like the key element within listening. So
I agree with also what you said just now, Matilda. Like you said that it was focusing out, and it's so true. Like so many times when I noticed I wasn't listening, it's because I was focusing in. I was thinking, what do I need to respond? And I think when I listen from that context, I'm not really listening. I am listening to respond. And I think on a deeper level, where that really comes from, to be really honest, is because I think it's a feeling of needing to always be right and needing to always have the last say, or needing to always kind of control the communication outcome. So I think in the spirit of surrendering, I think sometimes listening without needing to control the communication outcome, without needing to respond, because sometimes it's okay to say, I don't know, or just, and that's okay. And I'm learning that. What do you girls think?
Oh, that's beautiful.
Great point.
Listening and referring to it as a form of surrender. That's absolutely incredible. Because you surrender yourself, you surrender your thoughts. Because I'm like, if I don't say something right now, I'm going to forget what I wanted to say. And I want to go ahead and prove my point too. But your point is not irrelevant all the time. And I've also found that when you really are focused in on what the individual is saying, at the end of it, you're going to know how to respond. It will come. When your intention is set inwardly to be outward focused, that response will show up. It'll come forth. That's really cool. Surrender.
Matilda, I love what you just said. I have learned the most beautiful things just by listening and not responding and saying like, I don't know, but what you just said, that just blew my mind. So that's been one of the most best experiences that I've had speaking with others.
I don't know what I said because I was listening. Not to myself. So thank you. I'm glad. I hope it helps someone else too. That's beautiful, Jen.
For me, as I was listening to each of us tonight, including myself, but Zian, what you said really touched me. For me, I think the gift of listening is coming out of ourselves and not thinking of ourselves, but surrendering and being present for the other person. I used to think just the art of just being quiet was listening. That's not the art of listening. That when you give the gift of your time, you're not immersed in yourself, what you're going to say, how you're going to say it. You've surrendered and you're allowing the other person to carry the control, carry the conversation, say what they need to say. And so I love what you said, Zian. And for me, that was like the aha moment. The gift of listening is being present and being there for someone else and allowing them to flow the conversation.
Awesome.
And I think also for women, sometimes I'm just going to speak for myself. Sometimes I reckon that I don't listen so much because I think society and work kind of I was brought up in a way that I'm pressured to respond or pressured to say something at work, right? Especially like in line of training and coaching, people expect you to say something. So I guess the key question that we get to ask when we talk to women is, are you requesting for feedback, or do you just want me to listen? Because sometimes switching from being a coach to a friend, my friend just want me to listen. My friend doesn't want me to coach. So I guess the question that I get to ask when I talk to someone is, do you want me to listen, or do you want a feedback from me? Or do you want a suggestion from me? Sometimes we don't ask that. Maybe people just want you to listen, but we don't ask, so we don't know, right?
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for giving me permission to do that, because listening to you, I realized that maybe that's something I should add to the conversations that I have with my daughter, because she is a young lady and I want her to know that she is valued and that she is heard. And one of the things that she says to me sometimes is, Mommy, you don't have to fix it. I just want you to listen. You don't have to fix it. So I think now I'm just going to preface our conversations with, now, are you expecting feedback, or do you just want me to listen? And I'll let her tell me what her needs are. And I'll listen to that so that I can respond to her appropriately. Thank you for saying that, Deanne. Awesome. And so now moving forward, where do we go from here, ladies?
I think to add to what Zian and what we have said is, where can we go from listening? So what do we do with the information that we're comprehending? And so moving forward would probably look like, what does acknowledgement look like within the conversation to create effective change in our communication with the people we're interacting with?
So that sounds like part 2 of our Lotus chat for next week.
All right.
That sounds like next week.
Yes.
Awesome, ladies. So looking at acknowledgement and the importance of acknowledgement within the context of what is it that we are creating here, communication, connection, and the gift of listening. So moving forward, as we build connections through critical communications and experiencing the gift of listening, I guess that means that we're coming to a close, and we already know that next week we'll be talking about the precious gift of acknowledgement and how it has purpose within building strong communications.
One of the things that would be helpful to us is if you and our audience practice the art of listening, give the gift of listening, and then share with us your experience in the chat. And we would love to see what you think or what you've learned this week in that. And we'll be checking it. And next week, as Matilda said, we'll be talking about acknowledgement and creating clarity. So thank you, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
And don't forget to like and follow.
Oh, yes.
Please. Thank you, Jazzy.